Hey, friends and listeners of the Switch for Good podcast. Yep, that's you. I have some really exciting news. Dotsie and I have started a Switch for Good podcast Facebook group. We created it so we can build a community of fans that will help us improve the show and deliver on the topics that you want to learn more about. So we want to hear what your favorite content is, what you want more of, and what you want less of. And if you like the length of the show, Dotsie and I are always talking about the length of the show, right, Dotsie?
Yes.
We want to tailor our show around the needs and desires of our incredible listeners, almost 500,000 of you. And it's really simple to join. Just go to our Switch for Good Facebook page. That's Switch, the number 4, and then Good. And then click on groups. And there we are, the Switch for Good podcast chat. You can post directly in the group, share ideas, talk to other listeners, and connect with like-minded folks. So go, run, join our Facebook group and tell us what you want.
Welcome, everyone. Here we are again. Welcome to the Switch for Good podcast. I'm Dotsie, and I'm here with Alexandra. Lovely to see you, my lady.
Hi, Dotsie.
So you and I decided a few weeks ago that we should divulge the information to our audience on our favorite podcasts, right? What are we listening to? We're making the Switch for Good podcast. We don't listen to it all that often. You do a better job. I like to listen to a really interesting guest on a mountain bike ride or so, but I'm not a huge fan of listening to myself. So I don't listen to it very often. But sometimes when I do listen to, a great guest that we've had on, I realize how much I missed during the actual podcast interview, because when you're interviewing someone, you've got to stay just one tiny step ahead, right? So that you can keep the conversation flowing. So I realized that I could be a better listener when we're actually doing it. It might help me be a better interviewer. But I pick up things that I don't even remember them saying when I listen to them on my mountain bike ride. So anyway, always good lessons in listening. So I've picked 2 podcasts and 1 show on Amazon. Actually, I'm just going to be honest. It's not 3 podcasts. I'm going to start with the show on Amazon just because I want people to know that it's happening and want people to know that it's going on. And I think it's a really cool, fantastic, safe and kind way to share whole food plant-based eating with like your peeps, right? Your peeps that you love, your peeps that are curious, and even stranger peeps, right? Who that you come across maybe at the grocery store. You could say, hey, check this out. So the lovely Gianna Simone, who we had on the Switch for Good podcast, episode 38, she has a really harrowing life story. So if you haven't gotten to tune into that, it's a beautiful journey through healing, that podcast. But she has a show on Netflix called Love Gianna. It's a great kind of interview style show that's podcast-esque in the way she delivers it. She's in person with the guest in her home, but it's all about advocating for a whole food plant-based lifestyle. It's just very straightforward. It's no nonsense, zero fluff. She just interviews the most renowned plant-based doctors in our movement. And they're extraordinary. There's Greger, there's Sadeghi, there's Esselstyn, there's Barnard. I mean, she really, has the gamut. That's season 1. Season 2 are all the best plant-based athletes in the world. And I think she's just uploaded a couple of episodes of season 2. So if you want to share the facts with your peeps, let them know to tune in on Netflix to Love Gianna.
And so, Dotsie, what episode are you on then, if they're doing the best athletes in the world?
Well, we'll just let people figure that out.
Okay.
I had a really lovely time sitting there with her having this conversation. So yeah, you in the season 2, you might find yours truly somewhere in there. Okay, so we're gonna just quickly go to my kind of go-to fave podcasts. They're actually a little bit similar because Alexandra and me, I like to go deep, right? So I really like to have experiences when I'm listening to podcasts. I like to really feel something. I like to see and hear and think about how I might, improve something I'm feeling sticky with in my own life at that time. So the first one is called The List by Jess Porter. There's lots of the lists on in podcast world, so you have to put in The List by Jess Porter. But this podcast is my new fave. In a time where I've been open about this on the show, that I'm traversing kind of understanding my own best form of leadership. I realized that one of the mistakes I've been making for the last year is reacting to everything rather than creating what I want to be and experience. And this reactionary response puts me most times in a state of anxiety and sometimes even panic. Listening to The List has really taught me to create what Jess titles impromptu gratitude. So every time I hit kind of a sticky spot where I realize, Dotsie, you're just reacting and not creating, I find that when I, again, Jess's words, not mine, when I triple down on gratitude, most of my reactionary impulses fade away and I can enter a much more creative space that I appreciate. She interviews different guests from all walks of life, and they do impromptu gratitude lists. And this podcast, man, it's awesome. It's a really effective tool for converting terror and fear into relaxation and depression into joy. She started this podcast right at the beginning, the first couple months of the pandemic, and I know that it's helped literally probably millions of people. All right, and up next, second podcast that's my fave. It's called This Might Get Uncomfortable, and it's done by Jason Robel and Whitney Lauritsen. Now, Jason, as you might remember, is an uber talented plant-based chef who I got to know actually late in 2019 when we were both speaking at the Remedy Retreat in Oregon. And you may remember him from the Switch for Good podcast, episode 58, where Alexandra and I had him on. Do listen to that episode. We took so many good tips from it. But Jason has struggled from severe depression and anxiety and had a very tough battle, as a lot of people did throughout the pandemic in 2020. So this podcast that Jason and Whitney have started, they discuss how many elements in our life affect our well-being, and that there can be many different ways we can explore those. One avenue is to have open, honest conversation about what it really means to be well. And they navigate in this podcast, literally the gamut. It's love and relationships, it's purpose, it's meaning, it's mental health, it's wellness, and it's failure. Basically, well, I guess all of the things that make us human. But they do it with this pureness, they just really get to the heart of everything. They dig deep. It's honest, and I find them both quite self-effacing, which is nice. So tune into that one. This Might Get Uncomfortable, and I think both of those, and including the Netflix special by Gianna Simone, will enrich your life and your experiences listening to podcasts. So those are my faves. The next show that we're going to do later on, Alexandra's going to give hers. Can't wait to hear what they are. So we are going to jump into our guests, though, because we're uber pumped. Here we are. We have Kathy Freston and Jean Stone, who you all know anyway, but if you didn't before, you definitely know them too from the Switch for Good podcast. And Kathy was episode 83, and Jean graced us on the day that we recorded our 100th episode. So that was pretty exciting. We are going to dive in deep to their amazing book that just released, 72 Reasons to Be Vegan, or as I recently renamed it, 72 Reasons to Not Be a Dumbass. But that's not a very nice thing to say.
I like that.
This is a much better title, you guys. It's such a good book. So let me just do a little bit of an intro for all of you out there who maybe don't know much about Kathy or Jean, so you can hear about some of their other books that they put out, because they're all absolutely fantastic. Ladies first, Kathy Freston is a New York Times bestseller, author of multiple health and wellness books, most notably The Lean, Quantum Wellness, and Clean Protein. Her advocacy for a more healthy, sustainable, and just food system is inspired by her concern for human health as well as animal and environmental welfare. Kathy appears frequently on national TV, including Ellen, Dr. Oz, Good Morning America, The Talk, Extra, Oprah, and her work has been featured in multiple publications and magazines like Vanity Fair and Harper's Bazaar. Kathy enjoys hiking and biking, which I didn't know, so we're going to have to do something about that this summer.
Yeah, a little intimidating to bike with, but okay.
I'd like to do that. And we'll travel almost anywhere, like all four of us really, for a good vegan meal, and is obsessed with her adopted dog, Trixie. Mm-hmm. Jean is a former Peace Corps volunteer, journalist, and book, magazine, and newspaper editor, as well as, New York Times bestselling author. He has written, co-written, or ghostwritten more than 45 books on a wide variety of subjects. But for the last decade, he has concentrated on plant-based diets and their relationship to health, animal protection, and the environment. Among those books are Forks Over Knives, How Not to Die, Animal Kind, The Awareness, The Engine 2 Diet, Living the Farm Sanctuary Life, Rescue Dogs, Mercy for Animals, Healthy at Last, and Eat for the Planet, which are just all extraordinary books. So pick which one you want to start with. Welcome, both of you, to the podcast.
Thank you. So good to be here again.
Yeah, it's great. Thanks.
Yeah, for sure. Well, so I know, Jean, you went vegan after you met Texas firefighter Rip Esselstyn. And
Mm-hmm.
Kathy, you looked at your dog one day and was like, hold on a minute, right?
Yeah.
What's going on? They're all the same. I mean, really just a powerful psychological moment that you had there.
Yeah.
How did you guys then come together? I mean, you've had, obviously illustrious careers like we just went over, but how did you guys come together for this? Did the publisher come to you? Did you guys go to them? How did this wonderful book come to life?
Oh, thank you. Well, I'll just say Jean and I are really good friends. We've been friends for years. And I always say we're going to be an old married couple one day if we weren't gay, but that might not stand in the way. I'm not sure. But we just love hanging out. We talk on the phone all the time. And we were kind of riffing about our next projects and what we were doing. And Jean said, there's never been a book about just all the reasons to be vegan. I mean, he's done health books and books on, reversing disease. And I've done books about eating consciously and spirituality and healthy relationships. But there's never been a book that just laid out the reasons in very, very simple bottom line terms. And we thought, well, we would love to see this book because it's not only for just someone who's curious about going vegan or plant-based, but it's for people like us who were already there, but we, you're not a walking, talking database of statistics and numbers. And, people are always coming at us saying, well, how exactly does animal agriculture affect climate change? And, what is the difference between a dairy cow and a beef cow and what the effect on, the environment, things like that. So we thought, let's just put it all together. So it's kind of a great book for not only people who are curious, but who are already there and they just need a good tool for advocacy. And Jean and I were like, okay, let's do this. He had a relationship with the publisher.
Yeah, let me jump in. At this point, once Kathy and I knew that we wanted to do it, I'd worked with this publisher, Workman, before. They were the distributor for Forks Over Knives, and they did my book, Secrets of People Who Never Get Sick. And Kathy and I were talking about what kind of publisher we wanted. We didn't want to use an agent. We just figured since we've got contacts, we would sell it ourselves. So we actually went to them and said, look, we've got this really good idea. Do you want to publish it? And they said, yes, one of the easiest publishing transactions I think either of us has ever been through. And I think they did a really good job packaging it. They're known for their art and their ability to design books to look really different and interesting. I mean, the trim size it's just kind of cool.
Yeah.
You can just pick it up, you can carry it, you can put it in a pocket. So yeah, they did a really good job. And I think, Kathy, aren't we pretty pleased with them?
Oh my God, I'm so happy. I've never actually been that pleased with a publisher. I don't know about you guys, but it's like the cover art is always like, really? Are you serious? And this one just, and I love this thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really clean and
These little things, it just makes me
approachable.
so happy. Yeah. And it's a very happy book. It's a very upbeat, easy, sort of easy on the eyes, which I really like. So yeah, we love Workman.
It feels like it's almost like a pocket workbook.
Yeah.
I know. You could just take it anywhere, and it's I don't know. I've highlighted and dog-eared and used this too, like you said, for those that are not watching on YouTube. It's like a cover flap where you can keep your spot in the book.
Right.
Why 72? Was that a publisher thing too, or how did you guys end on it?
We started. Jean, do you want to talk about it or?
Well, we didn't want to be limited by number. In other words, it wasn't like 100 reasons, and then we had to have 100 reasons. So we really wanted it to be organic. In other words, we wrote the reasons we thought were appropriate, and it pretty much turned out to be 72. Okay. So it wasn't like we had in mind, it had to be a certain number. It just got there.
We just kept writing until it felt like, okay, we've got everything. We don't want to start repeating ourselves. Everything is sort of standalone, and everything works to complete this whole picture. And it just turned into 72, it feels like it's a good number.
Yeah, that feels organic.
It's nice. It's divisible by lots of things.
Right.
I'd like to talk about some of the 72, because some of them are surprising and some of them are things that we know, but you give extra facts and figures and make it easier for us to spread the word. Tell us about a couple that you were so happy to put in because they were either original or they meant a lot to you personally.
Well, let's see. I was really happy to talk about the sex part of it because, we always everybody talks about heart disease and blood pressure and, BMI and stuff like that, which is super important. And we all know about the animal consciousness, which is super important. That's always my favorite reason. But the sex part was, I think that gets people like where they live, like, oh my God, really? It'll affect me that quickly and that profoundly. So, and not only men, but women, because, basically the same stuff that lards up your arteries to your heart is what lards up the circulation in your tender bits. So, and it's not just men with ED, erectile dysfunction, is also women, So once you clear the circulation, once you really get those healthy fruits and vegetables and you get rid of all that saturated fat and cholesterol that comes along with animal products, things flow better. And when you have better flow, everything functions, you feel things, the nerves are very happy. So I thought that was pretty fascinating because it's for men and women.
So reason 11, gals, your clitoris #orgasms. You didn't hold back, did you?
No, why bother? Why not? Let's tell it like it is,
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I think for me, all the reasons, it's like your children. They're all important, whether it's health and environment, everything else. I particularly like the Go Fish, No Fish chapter because I think it's pretty easy to convince people, well, not easy, but it's easier to convince people that a little lamb has feelings or you shouldn't hurt a calf. But most people don't feel that way about fish. They think, well, it's fish, they're just food. So I think I'd like to think we did a good job trying to show how fish have feelings, or fish are interesting creatures. They're something that you really don't want to torture if you can avoid. And of course, there are the environmental issues, such as if we keep fishing the way we've been doing it, I think it's the year 2048, we'll run out of fish. And so it's not just simply that, don't harm those little things. It's also that if you keep eating them, there won't be any left.
And and they're sort of part of the whole ecosystem of life. So when the fish disappear, everything sort of begins to fall apart. So it's pretty interesting. And the fact that fish, are so contaminated now with mercury and PCBs and dioxins, and there's all these micro beads of plastic out in the water, it's unavoidable. What fishing was back in the biblical days, or even 100 years ago, this sweet guy out in his fishing boat, and just sort of earning a living. And it's just that it's not the world we live in now. The fish is so contaminated that every time we eat fish, we're eating mercury, plastics. I mean, those plastics are ubiquitous. And we take it in. So it's pretty fascinating when you really see the fish. Is that the new one?
Hello, doggy. No, that's the old crazy one. Literally, that's the 15-year-old Chihuahua. Like the new sweet one is asleep and knows we're podcasting.
Oh, right. I'm so grateful. Yeah.
Right. I pulled the 2020 plant-based foods retail sales data, and in 2020, so plant-based food sales surpassed $7 billion, and sales themselves went up 27% in 2020. Over the last 2 years, it's grown 43%, 9 times faster than total food sales. So those are pretty mind-blowing and pretty darn exciting. What have you guys noticed the most? And this is reason number one in your book, veganism is happening in a major way. And yes, it is. If anyone was doubting it, those stats are incredible. What are a couple of the things from each of you that you've really noticed that maybe the public consciousness is starting to get the memo versus 7 or 8 years ago?
I think for me, the most extraordinary issue is when I started doing this, maybe, 15 years ago, and my friends all thought it was like an eating disorder or something
Right.
wrong with me. And you'd go to a restaurant and you would have to beg to get something. It's just remarkable to me that now you can go to almost any restaurant and there's always going to be a vegan option. Chefs seem absolutely delighted to give it a try if there isn't something there. So where it was kind of difficult before to eat out, now it is just so easy. And Kathy, for instance, I don't know if I feel exactly the same way. She loves going to steakhouses.
I do. I love a good martini, as Dotsie knows, and I do. I love going out with friends in my community of friends. They're not all vegan, and they like a good steakhouse. And where I live up in Santa Barbara, I just love this place called Lucky's, and it's just like the happening place, and they have the best martini. And I said to the guy who runs it, I said, I've been ordering potatoes and vegetables along with my martini for so long. You'd make more money if you had like a main dish, like a hearty main dish, and I would pay good money for it. I think, everyone would be happy. And he said, Kathy, this is not a vegetarian restaurant. This is a steakhouse. I said, I know, but there's something called the veto vote. And that is that if, 6 of us or 4 of us are a group and there's one vegan, we're going to go to a restaurant that has something for everyone. So even if you're not even if most people are ordering steak and chicken and everything, if you don't have something that's really hearty and delicious for that one person who wants a vegan dish, plus not everybody is vegan, but they just want to, cut back on their cholesterol or unhealthy protein, we're going to veto that restaurant and go someplace where there's something for everyone. And he kind of thought about it, and he took one of the dishes that was a fish dish, and he took the miso sauce that he used, and he grilled tofu with some wilted spinach. And it is amazing. And I said, so Leonard, how's it doing? And he said, it's flying out of the kitchen.
Yay.
And then they added another burger. And so, a really good plant-based burger. And that's flying out of the kitchen, because it's not just vegans. It's just people who want to cut back on calories or just want to, their doctors said, hey, your blood pressure is up. You got to chill out on the cholesterol and saturated fat. And we all know that's all animal foods. So, that's changed. And then you look around and you go, okay, Burger King, Taco Bell, KFC, McDonald's is finally changing. You've got major meat companies like Tyson who are getting into the business, who are advocating for policies that will allow more plant-based stuff, and even, you know, cellular meat, which is a whole nother thing that's on the horizon. But they're seeing these big companies. I think that's a real signpost that they are interested in advocating for this kind of meat that is not coming from slaughtered animals. They see the future. And so we have this interesting intersection of awareness. Like, you know, with every generation, they're more and more aware of climate change, right? It's alarming. They're more aware of what happens behind the scenes at slaughterhouses because the videos are out there. So we've got this awareness of what's happening, which is now intersecting with availability of alternate proteins. And so alternate proteins have gotten so good in the past even 5 years, you know, they're just phenomenal. And so you've got this unique intersection. And so it's just been an explosion of interest, because if it tastes the same or pretty much the same or even better, why not have the plant-based version? You know, it's like, I don't require that an animal go through hell and live in dirty conditions and, you know, be slaughtered and strung up and all that stuff to enjoy my food, as long as it tastes really good. And I think that's the attitude that's sort of gaining popularity, is like, okay, as long as it tastes good, I'll do it. It's not necessarily for an ethical thing, but why not?
Mm-hmm. I just saw a couple days ago come across my desk that the British cycling team has brought on a plant-based sponsor. So it's a we don't have that over here, but it's like similar to a Gardein. And they polled all of the athletes, and they have dropped their meat consumption by about a half over the last couple of years. The athletes have been working towards that. So we're just seeing so much more reduction, I think.
Well, we're that's athletes like you. So when you're out there winning, you know, Olympic medals, and then people are saying, oh my God, there are athletes who are not only thriving, but performing better on this kind of food. Okay. You know, because like Jean was saying, back 10 years ago, 20 years ago, it was this fringy thing, and you thought they were like skinny sort of whatever hippies. Yeah. And now you see like these kick-ass athletes who are winning awards, and they're attributing their success to avoiding animal foods, certainly dairy, more than anything. So it's kind of, again, it's that awareness meeting the availability and accessibility of alternate proteins.
Mm-hmm.
One of the chapters that surprised me, the title is "Every Time You Buy a Chicken, You Hurt a Farmer," which is a really wonderful twist on the general thing. Is the general arguments is every time you buy a chicken, you hurt a chicken, the environment, or yourself. But tell us about hurting the farmer.
Well, I have very good friends that I know from Arkansas who this woman, Jennifer Barrett, reached out to me after I was on Oprah, and she said she wanted to go, she had wanted to go vegan, but she was a chicken farmer. She's third generation chicken farmer. So they basically raised chickens for this, you know, factory farm corporate organization. And, the chickens would be, they'd come and take the chickens away from them, and they'd be slaughtered, and they kept getting a new batch and everything like that. And so she told me what life was like as a chicken farmer in the country, and hard workers. I mean, farmers are the hardest workers, the purest people you've ever met in your life. Connected to the earth. They don't mind the hard work. You know, she never had health insurance. They got all kinds of viruses and sicknesses going into the chicken sheds and everything. Her husband would daily go through the sheds and have to, pick up the sick birds and break their necks and put them in a bucket. That's just what it was like. And it was day after day after day after day. And so the company required that you keep upgrading your equipment. So you'd have to take out a loan in order to get the equipment. And you just think, okay, I'm going to pay it off. We're going to pay it off by selling all the chickens. And then, your electrical bills are super high because you've got to keep the temperatures, your water bills a certain way and everything. They never, ever got out of debt. I think they were over $1 million in debt farmers do not get ahead. This is an industry that keeps the farmer down. You know, it's the corporations, these huge companies, the chicken companies that thrive, but it's the farmer who pays the price. They have this sort of lottery system where it's the farmers who grow the chickens the fastest and the biggest get the most financial reward, so the other ones are pushed down. So there's this incentive to grow them really fast and really big, but the money is taken from the farmer who doesn't do quite as well. And so there's this internal, you know, urgent competition that just drives the quality down, 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 and they could never get ahead. So long story short, they became vegan for their health, and got out of the chicken business. And they've, you know, she's lost all kinds of weight. He had health issues that are gone. And to me, she's one of my heroes. She is a bright shining star of what it looks like to give up one lifestyle when everyone around you is doing it. You know, they're living in chicken country.
Well, one of the things we wanted to do in this book is show that it isn't just animals that are suffering, that humans suffer too, whether it's Kathy's friends, the chicken farmers, or the slaughterhouse workers who have these horrible, horrible jobs that are so badly taken advantage of. Or it's the people who live near the pig farms and all the excrement and the pollution that they have to suffer. So we're trying to make the point that this is a larger thing than just simply deciding one night not to have a burger. This really affects your the people around you, not just the animals, and your own health. So that was, I thought, an important part of what we wanted to do in the book.
Yeah, they really put the big corporations really have the farmers do the riskiest financial part of the entire process, right? And that's just keeping the animals alive, because you can't sell them if they're not alive and healthy, right? And big and all of that. What did she do to get out of that $1 million debt, and what did they transition into?
They're still transitioning. They're, you know, you can find them on Instagram, the Barrett Family Farm, and they have 250 cows that they take care of. And it is no joke. And they have some goats. The chickens, they don't own the chickens, but they didn't have the right to give sanctuary to them because they were basically a holding area for the chickens. So the chickens were taken away, and it was heartbreaking for them. I mean, especially Jennifer, she's a real empath. And I think that she has had to keep her sort of connection to animals down for so long. So once she stopped doing it, her heart is just like so open. And you should see these cows. The relationship she has with these cows is amazing, but it's a huge responsibility. So they're finding their way financially, and they're frankly still in debt.
Yeah.
Just as an aside, Kathy just mentioned these wonderful cows. One of my favorite chapters in the book actually is that cows love classical music.
I have that earmarked. It's one of mine too.
Because, you know, a lot of people will say, well, maybe understand about pigs, they're really smart, but cows are stupid and who cares? And of course, the more we learn about cows, they're pretty amazing creatures. And I love the idea that somebody actually went out and experimented with, you know, do they like Bach? Do they like rock music? What do they really like? And it turns out they don't like rock, but they do like Bach.
Yeah. Take us through that chapter, Jean. What did you learn? Besides what you just shared?
Again, the major thing that I learned, and that we're trying to get across, is that sometimes we have this way of just thinking, well, we judge animals by their intelligence. And if they're really intelligent, maybe we shouldn't hurt them. But if they're not so intelligent, we can. And I don't think that's a really fair way to decide who lives and who dies. We certainly don't do that with people. I don't think we should do that with animals. And of course, what is intelligence? There's more to a being than intelligence. There's warmth and kindness and love and so many other factors. And what we're discovering so much more about cows is just what extraordinary creatures they are. It's not just that they love classical music, but just the affection they have for each other and how much they love their children. They're remarkable. And so I think both Kathy and I, thinking we knew a lot about all of this, learned a lot more in doing our research.
Yeah, we measure intelligence. Humans measure non-human animals' intelligence based on human intelligence.
Exactly.
And so, of course, everyone else is going to lose out. But, you know, we can't, hear as well as so many animals, or see, or communicate with our tentacles. I mean, there's so much we can't do, but we just dismiss it. So I'm so glad that you're bringing that also up in your book.
I think there's nothing more idiotic looking than when our animals look at us staring at this lit up box all day long. I mean, it just, can you imagine how dumb this looks? And you hear, I hear all the time growing up in Kentucky that deer are stupid because they run across the road and get hit. It's like their sphere is not, they don't drive because they don't need to, because they're fat. Right? Like, I mean, that's what's just, well, right. We run into each other all the time too. That's a good meme. That's a really good one. There you go. Yeah.
So you all didn't use the term plant-based. It's vegan all over the book. And we're curious about what your decision was there. Was there any discussion? Because some people...
Yeah. Well, we used the word plant-based in the subtitle. Why plant-based? Why now? And we actually wanted to include both terms because we talk about both things. So plant-based is, you come in through the health door. You're interested in reversing a disease or losing some weight or getting stronger, something like that, and that's great. We wanted to speak to all those reasons, and really give all the bottom line facts about that stuff. But we also wanted to talk about the ethical reasons, animal sentience, the effect on the environment, how it affects relationships between people. So it's really, veganism is more a sort of a spectrum of reasons. It's more of a lifestyle that you are concerned with all these different things. I consider myself vegan rather than just plant-based. I mean, I think plant-based is in there, but we wanted to speak to all of it because not everybody is interested in the animal sentience. Some people are just interested in the health. So we wanted to use both terms.
We also found that there's a bit of a generational divide, that people like my age hear the word vegan and they think, ooh, creepy, weird people. Whereas millennials, vegan's cool, whatever. So there is, I think there was a stigma to the word vegan for a long time, but I think that's going away as young people are beginning to realize, oh, cool, vegan, whatever, that's cool.
Yeah.
I'll do that.
Yeah. Yeah. And they feel comfortable with it. Back to health. We know that soy has been a staple for, food and drink for many, many thousands of years, mostly in the Eastern world and Asia. And for most of that time, there's been little to no breast cancer. What did you all learn about some of those cultures in relation to the differences between our health issues here in North America versus those cultures for so many years, and what is the staple of their diets?
Well, I'll speak about the longest living women in the world come from Okinawa, Japan, and that's a blue zone. And the highest concentration of centenarians in women. Breast cancer is pretty much non-existent, or certainly was non-existent before, things have been more westernized. And two of the staples of the diet are sweet potatoes. It's like a Japanese sweet potato, and soy, tofu, various kinds of, they have a gazillion ways to have tofu, different consistencies and flavors and different ways of making it and fermenting it and all that stuff. So they've been eating soy for thousands of years, and those women are thriving without breast cancer. And the men, no man boobs. So we say, no, don't worry about your chest with soy. And of course, we're not soy advocates. It's not like you need soy to be healthy. You certainly don't. We don't care one way or the other, but we just wanted to address the fear around soy, that here's the science, decide for yourself if you like it or not, but there's really nothing to worry about.
And of course, one of the books that got this whole the popularity of plant-based diets and health started was the China study, so it goes right back to China there.
Yeah. What have you guys seen as far as the stats go as the Western diet starts to infiltrate Asia. Do you know what the rates are going up as far as breast cancer?
People who move from these countries, these places in the world, move to the United States, their health actually goes downhill. So they do not maintain that kind of longevity and health when they adopt the Western diet.
And it's the same thing in Asia. In Japan, studies have shown that as the Japanese have adopted the American diet, their rate of cancer has started to increase.
Yeah. It's China and India are mostly in relation to dairy, mostly living what was about 60 years ago here, with the government pushing dairy on the people for all of the reasons that we know are untrue now over here. Strong bones, healthier, grow taller. And I've talked to multiple people fighting this battle that we're fighting here in China. And it's a tidal wave over there. I mean, everybody just can't get enough dairy. It's like they've just gotten the memo or something, right? And the insane part is 98% of them can't digest it or tolerate it properly. So I don't know. I don't know how they're really processing, understanding like, okay, I'm putting this in and now I feel this way, or they're making the connection, but the government's really, really convincing them, obviously just for the bottom line, that this is a healthy food and that they will grow tall. And they want to grow tall like Americans, and now they're going to be diseased like us. So welcome.
Tall and diseased. That's full.
Oof. Yeah.
And with an overburdened medical system too, it sounds like, right? So you mentioned earlier, Jean, that there are different reasons that the book was written primarily. You take different tacks. You take it's better for humans, it's better for animals, it's better for the environment and your health. What if somebody came up to you as an environmentalist? What were the two reasons you would give them from your book in terms of trying to let them know, convince them that going vegan really makes a difference in terms of the environment?
Well, there are a number of them. Certainly there is, we talk about cows burping and farting and all the methane that creates, and methane being actually a worse gas for the environment than carbon dioxide. And also another thing we talk about, I think I mentioned before, is all the pollution that is created from, let's say, the pig farms in North Carolina and the devastation that's having on their water being a whole other issue. There really is a limited amount of fresh water. And if we give all that fresh water to the animals instead of the people that need it, we're really doing a service to our fellow human beings. So there's three right there. I think we tried very hard in the 72 to make it even among all of them. So there's probably another 15 or 20 that apply to the environment.
Great. I saw chocolate. That one caught my eye.
I love chocolate.
Tell me why that's there.
Yes, it did.
Chocolate to me is sort of like a religion. It's like I pray to it every day and then I eat it. It's 70% dark chocolate or more, and I'm a very happy person. And when I went vegan and discovered you could still have chocolate, that meant a lot to me.
Me too. That's really the best too. The best kind is the dark. Reason number 19 is eggs are not incredible or edible. And that was my last to give up because, had to have the eggs for everything about them. I thought I had to have for, to be a good athlete. I ate them every morning, and I was really shocked to find out that the stats say even 1 or 2 eggs a week increases your risk of colon cancer by 19%. I mean, that's big. That's a lot. And even 5 eggs a week, significantly increasing getting breast cancer. People have, I think, as hard a time as I did giving up eggs when you talk about, giving up eggs and what's really in them and what it actually is, chicken ovulation. We all get asked all the time. I'm positive that all 4 of us have been asked, well, if you had a chicken in your backyard and it laid an egg, I mean, that would be okay to eat. And as far as an animal welfare conversation, okay. But at the end of the day, we just believe that they are not there for us to use in any way, shape, or form. So we wouldn't be. But then it's just disgusting. You just talk about, wait, what is that? That's what then got me. It's like, that is really what that is chicken ovulation. And it grossed me out is how I finally said, okay, enough of that. Yeah.
It comes out of a chicken's prolapsed butthole, which is the same thing as their vagina, you know, and it comes out of that, and it's like the menstrual cycle. So, you know, it's kind of gross, frankly. And, you know, it is 6 grams of protein if you're going to eat the whole egg, the white and the yolk. And 6 grams of protein is just not that much. 1 cup of lentils has 17 grams of protein. Right. Plus, you know, all the minerals and fiber and stuff like that. So I think most people do eat eggs not for some delicious taste. I mean, it can taste good when you're adding in different flavors and everything, but eggs are kind of gamey, really. I mean, if you just were to eat an egg. And so most people are into it for the protein, but the protein isn't a big payoff. And the protein package, like Harvard talks about, it's all about the protein package. What comes along with it? Well, with eggs, you've got so much cholesterol. I mean, 1 egg is as much cholesterol as an 8-ounce steak. So why bother? You know, there's just so many other clean sources of protein than eggs.
Yeah. One of the things that when I went vegan, I was afraid of was missing a lot of foods. And eggs, I think, were probably, eggs and fish were the 2 that I thought I was going to have the hardest time with. And about 2 years after I went vegan, I was in a situation just like you described. I was up in a farm, and there were these happy little chickens running all over the place, and eggs were everywhere. And so I thought, well, you know, what the hell? I miss eggs. And the funny thing was, I didn't like it. It was so rich, and what I remembered eggs as being, and then when I had eggs so many years later, it wasn't the same thing. I didn't like it. When we're talking to people about giving up foods, often what you discover is you didn't really like those foods as much as you think. You know, Neil Barnard has done research on cheese showing how addictive it is. A lot of times when people give up meat after a while, the idea of meat then becomes just intolerable to them. So even though it sounds sometimes like it's difficult to give up these things, the fact is your body thanks you for it. And if you end up having some of it later, you're going, oh God, that's awful.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, I love the conversation, like you were saying, Kathy, around the package that something comes in is, you know, just eggs, which if people haven't tried them, you have to, you could get it in liquid form, or you could get them in a foldable one that you microwave for 60 seconds. And that it has just as much protein as the egg. It's got 5 or 6 grams, but it's made from mung beans, which is the highest fiber content bean on planet Earth. So you're not only in that package, not clogging your arteries with cholesterol, you're literally scrubbing them out as you eat a patty of just egg, which I'm a huge fan on toast with avocado. You get that same satiety of, you know, when eating eggs. So,
We talk about fiber. I think that's an important point, is that we always talk about cholesterol and protein and fat. Fiber is really just as important, because if you didn't have fiber, it wouldn't really matter what else you were eating, because you'd get everything that gets stuck and it would be awful. So we talk a lot about how important that fiber is, and you don't get fiber from animal products. It comes from plants.
You know, that brings to mind a story that Ian, my husband, loves. He's always talking about fiber. Do you remember that plane that crashed in the Andes, and the people they had no fiber in their diet at all for months, and they had to take a stick and stick it up their anus to get any kind of relief.
That wasn't in the movie.
Number 73.
You won't have to stick a stick up your ass.
Oh my God. We ended with that. That's amazing.
That would have been good.
Yeah.
Great.
And their diet was just meat. The book fascinated me in 1972 or 3. Whenever it came out, I was in, you know, middle school, and it was fascinating. And so, and it obviously fascinated him too, because he always brings it up when we talk about fiber. So I had to bring it up right now. Yeah, when you write the second book, you can include that story.
No, we're definitely going to use that
one. Jean, you mentioned that one of the things that was a challenge for you when you gave up meat and dairy. I like to say when you added in a lot of other plant foods, which is how we really should be listening. I love it because, you know, there's milk in the grocery store from an animal, and maybe there's goat milk. And then you've got 10 other nut milks. So when you actually take out cow's milk and goat milk, you've got a plethora of more choices. But tell us, Kathy, about your challenge that you might have addressed in this book that you wanted to, because it was a challenge that came up for you when you made the switch.
Well, there were a couple of them, but one, I am like, you know, anything creamy, I am a slave to. I love cheese. I love yogurt. I love anything that's just sort of gooey and cheesy. I don't know, it just makes me feel comfortable. So the idea of not having cheese, my mother and father grew up having cheese and crackers every night before dinner. It was a ritual. I think it's in my genetic code. I must have cheese and crackers before dinner. And so it was like, what am I going to do? You know? So I realized I have this thing for me. I like to really crowd something out rather than cut it out. So I like to bring in an alternative and just see how it sits with me and enjoy that beforehand. So I would have hummus, I would have guacamole and all that stuff. And it was great. I mean, for, you know, cocktails, it was nice, but I really missed the cheese. And then my friend Tal Ronan, who's this famous chef, who started Crossroads Kitchen, he brought into the world this glorious thing called cashew cream. And it is so easy. You just basically toss a few raw cashews after you soak them into a high-speed blender. You put some water in, and it blends it however consistent you want it, whether it's really thick. And so I use that for basis for a creamy soup, like cream of broccoli soup or cream of mushroom soup. I put sweeteners in it. If I want like a cream over a dessert, I make Alfredo. It's an Alfredo sauce, and I make, you know, great pasta with sausage and Alfredo sauce. And so that really helped me crowd out the old dairy cream. And of course, now I can make that stuff myself, and I do, but there's also all kinds of amazing cheeses and yogurts and ice creams and things like that. So it is not a challenge anymore. I actually was in another country a couple of years ago, back in the day when we used to travel. And I went to a Starbucks and I ordered a soy latte, and I got so excited because that was like one of my favorite things. If I'm traveling, I treat myself to a soy latte. And
do the same.
Yeah, right.
Airport. I don't know what it is. It's like so exciting.
Like that's just like my treat, you know. Yeah. Road trips too. And so I settled into my chair and I drank it, and it was like, dang, it was real milk. And it was so gamey. Ugh. So what I used to love, this creamy, delicious milk, and I literally, that was my comfort if I, because I'm an introvert. So if I went out to an event and it was just a cacophony of noises, I'd come home and I'd have hot milk and honey. And that was my comfort, you know? So I loved it. But here I am years later, and I'm having a latte, hot milk latte with real dairy. And it was gross. It was gamey. And my taste buds have changed. I just didn't like it anymore. And you could taste that there's like something wrong.
Wrong, yeah.
It just tasted wrong, you know? So that was kind of a good experiment to see that I had profoundly changed my taste. And that's what happens over time. It just happens. Mm-hmm. So it's easy.
I had someone feed me a tamale like 3 days ago at their house, and they got it from Erewhon, which you guys know is a store in LA. As my friend likes to say, it's like Whole Foods, but more expensive. That place is insane. But the box said vegan tamales, and they were spinach. And there was like Parmesan, and I had it. I just was like, I couldn't quite place it because I had in my head that it was vegan. So I, took a big bite, and I saw the cheese kind of stretch, and I was like, well, which vegan cheese is that? I haven't seen anything stretch like that before. Like they can be sort of stretchy, but not like that. And then it was like, but something's happening that's not right. Yeah. And you just can't, but it's really extraordinary, your palate experience and changeover. I think it happens pretty quickly.
Yeah,
like
that's
a
right.
21-day kind of
Then
thing.
you get all the good lactose intolerance that comes along with it. You get a little flatulence, little bloated belly, you know.
Yay. What are some of the comments that have come in to you guys that you were most surprised about or most excited to hear? I know people are sharing this with people that need it. Yeah.
Well, I would say the comments that I'm hearing a lot is that it's been, people wanting to give it out to other people. I'm surprised at how many people are kind of on board and that just want, I don't want to answer all the questions all the time. So this has been perfect tool for advocacy. Here, read this, So that's been a really surprising thing, because we didn't know if it was going to be for people who are, vegan curious, which it is, but it's really turned into a tool for the people who are already on board.
Yeah, I would guess that more people, the people who are buying it are more likely to be vegans who want to give it to somebody else rather than vegans who want to be validated, because most vegans probably know a great deal of this. But so many of us, like you said before, we're always being asked, how do you get your protein? How do you get your calcium? Why do you not eat this? Why do you do that? And instead of sitting down having to answer all those questions, just give them the book.
Well, it's a very unintimidating book because you don't inundate people with facts and figures and things, and there's a lightness and a humor to it, which is the perfect gift, so that we don't come off as too intense in our quest to switch people over.
No chapter is longer than a page and a half. I mean, they're very short, brief, bottom line chapters. And Jean and I had, the ADD brain and mind. Bop over here.
We had that brain and mind partly because we both have it.
That's right.
Yeah.
Was there a reason that y'all didn't put in the book that you'd like to share with us, or a reason that Kathy wanted to but Jean didn't? Or tell us the behind the scenes of writing together.
Well, there was the one reason that Kathy knows what I'm going to say. The 73rd reason was actually my favorite, but nobody else liked it. I have a friend, a very, very scientific guy. He's one of the world's great watch repairers. And he went vegan, and he went vegan because he said that he believes in aliens. And he said if aliens came to Earth and they saw us eating other animals, what they would either do is be so disgusted by what we were doing, they'd leave, or it would be permission for them to eat us. So he didn't want that to happen. So he went vegan.
Thank God the editor was on my side.
Now you have two.
I like that one.
Two more reasons for your second book together.
Take us through the one pager on fun fact: your farts will smell like perfume if you go vegan. Because I'm not 100% sure that I need to be more vegan, or something has to change. I want to learn how we can make that happen in my house.
It's all
both of us. What?
Kathy, you wrote that one.
I don't think I did. No, that was yours.
Oh no, wasn't mine. I think
I don't know who that is.
If it had perfume in it, it was yours.
Anyway, it's just, we're not, I think people who are not used to that much fiber actually have more gas for about 3 weeks. It doesn't last. Your body's just getting used to all the fiber, and you just cook the beans longer. You cook everything a little bit longer. Your body gets used to it in about 3 weeks, and then it's not fermenting like the sulfur. Basically, the sulfurous stuff down in your colon is eggs and meat and stuff like that. And guess what? Doesn't come from plant food. So your farts will smell like perfume.
Not Chanel No. 5 though, so I'm bummed about that.
But. About that, yeah.
But we're not going to bottle it or try to mass produce it.
It's just a little bit better.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right. And then just pooping in general, because we talk about poop all the time on the podcast, is just a more wonderful experience and happens a lot more.
Yeah, totally. I mean,
once a day.
The hemorrhoids, constipation, you don't have that. You don't have to stick a stick.
Just stick up your butt.
I Thank you, Alexander. That's never going to leave my mind.
Oh, never going to leave mind ever again.
You have made an imprint in my mind. But anyway, so yeah, you just poop regularly. It's just not an issue. We do these keto and paleo diets where it's just, they avoid beans and legumes and whole grains and things like that. And they just don't have the same kind of fiber. And with this plant-based diet, it's just, you're pooping.
Yeah. I have a lot of guy friends who have meticulously over the years created their, poop library for all the things they can read while they're going. And they complain that there's no time. It's just happening so fast. I can't read anything anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a dead giveaway when there's a lot of magazines by the toilet, how someone's eating too.
They're eating animals.
Yeah.
That's so true.
Jean, what was you've done a lot of research because you have collaborated with a lot of people. What was a chapter that you most enjoyed writing?
That's a tough one. I think we already talked about it. And I think that's probably chocolate, because anytime I write about chocolate, I not only get happy thinking about it, I go eat some.
A little catalyst.
In fact, I want some right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My
Kathy,
favorite
what
was
about
writing
you?
about relationships, because people don't think much about relationships in this way. But so first of all, we talked about the sex, and so all the equipment works better. But there's something extremely sexy about someone who has a tender heart, who feels for animals. And to me, it's a very masculine thing to really step out and care about more vulnerable and like take care of them. So it's this tender heart mixed in with taking bold action. And I think that to me makes me just so drawn to someone, whether it's a man or a woman. I just feel so drawn and bonded to people like that, because there's this really incredible mix of awareness and action. Mm-hmm. And to go on this journey as a couple, usually it's one person sort of leading the other, but to go on this journey as a couple or as friends, it's just such a bonding thing, and it's a way that you relate to the world that didn't happen before. For me, I know that there's a numbness, if you're eating animal stuff, you basically have to sort of close down some awareness, right? You have to keep it down, because if you actually thought about what you're partaking in, there's no way. So you have to stay numb, and it's an unconscious process. And so when you do have that awareness and you've taken action and you've shifted the way that you eat and you've like tweaked it, and there's something that opens up, and that you feel so connected to life and the people around you who are sort of, going through their own awareness and everything. And I just think that that's a really exciting relational process.
Jean, you're single. How do people react when they find out you're vegan?
Depends. Sometimes they're kind of like freaked out a little bit. Sometimes they have a kind of negative reaction. But I would say most of the time, they're curious. It's an interesting discussion, I think, that vegans have, is which is better to do? Do you want to date another vegan so that you feel comfortable with that person? Or do you want to date a non-vegan and then flip them? Because maybe that's what we're supposed to do, is just keep dating many people as possible, flip them and flip them and flip them, move on and then flip them, and just create a whole cadre of ex-partners who are now vegan.
I've never dated a vegan. It's just, that's not happened for me. So I've always been with someone, I was married, and my husband definitely was not vegan. And when I started dating him, I ate steak, I ate, foie gras. I remember I had a fur collar around my favorite sweater, and I just I just never was with someone who was vegan. So it's always been I think an interesting process for me, because I've learned to communicate because of my own situation, like not to be judgmental, not to have expectations, just to sort of really have empathy for my partner, and just to sort of respect each other in our own processes, and hopefully we keep growing together.
Kathy, did your husband go vegan, and or was it a positive thing in your relationship, or was it something that actually you were growing and he wasn't growing in the same direction and actually
we were growing in different directions? So I would say he probably didn't, grow in the direction that I would have loved, and he would say the same about me. But we were very respectful of each other. So little by little, there was, nothing from an animal in the house. So we did have a vegan house, and we entertained that way. I mean, the way that I met Tal Ronan, this is probably 16 years ago, is that we were having a big dinner at our house, and he was in the media world, and we had like some major people over for dinner, and I wanted to do a vegan. He was like, Kathy, we can't do that. I mean, you can't impose your beliefs on other people. And I was like, what if I make the food really, really good? And so somebody had told me about Tal Ronan. He wasn't a private chef or anything, but I said, can you do it and make this food look good? And he said, okay, it was worth it for him to do that. And he made this seitan piccata. And one of the guys was, he was a 60 Minutes correspondent, and he wrote an email to us the next day saying that was the best veal piccata I've ever had in my life, which of course I didn't tell him at the time, but the next day I was like, guess what? You had seitan. And he's like, what? And so it was kind of, I think, as long as you're not a judgy person who's annoying your partner or people around you, kind of take it as this is an interesting conversation piece, It's all in the way you handle it.
Exactly. No shame and empowerment.
Yes.
Are the two. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Make people. Well, I've loved every second of this. I know that our audience is going to. Thank you for writing this. Thank you. I know I'm going to be giving it as gift over and over and over again. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
You guys did an extraordinary job with it.
Love talking to you guys.
Thank you. Hey, folks. Okay. Back by very popular demand is our plant-powered plate fridge magnet, which you are going to receive for free if you leave us a rating and a review on whatever platform you're listening to this podcast on. So here are the details. Just write your quick review. Does not need to be long, does not need to be a whole story. Just be honest and speak from the heart. Then take a quick screenshot of the review you wrote and email it to us at podcast@switchforgood.org. That's podcast@switchforgood.org. And include your mailing address so we can send you a power plate. We are doing this because the more reviews we garner, the higher we go in search results, which means more folks will learn about our podcast. So the power is in your hands. Leave us a review, and zoom, zoom, your power plate arrives at your doorstep.
So thank you so much for tuning in today. If we helped you in any way, then click the subscribe button and let's keep hanging out together. We have so much more to share with you.
And if you need more information on actually making the switch for good, please visit us at switchforgood.org for loads of info. And you can subscribe to our mailing list where you will receive all sorts of super cool gifts, discount codes to our very fave dairy-free products, and a lifetime of powerful health tips.
So join us on the journey to switch for good. This is the future.